as long as it's forward. God, send me anywhere, only go with me. Lay any burden on me, only sustain me. And sever any tie in my heart except the tie that binds my heart to yours. If you have men who will only come if they know there is a good road, I don't want them. I want men who will come if there is no road at all. Will go anywhere, provided it be forward. David Livingstone.
Thank you so much. And so, of course, that is our theme quote for this year of irreversibility, eyes to the stars. So that happens on the back side of our almanac, and we'll have a different theme quote for this coming year when our theme will be light on the path. Welcome, Mom. It's nice to see you tuning in from Walnut Creek, California. And welcome everybody to Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation circle sponsored by Stella Moving Center on Saturday evenings, afternoons, just about every week of the year. And we're very fortunate this week to be taking up, appropriate to the time, the Christmas spirit. And for that, we have someone who has delved into mystical Christianity, as well as really a number of other traditions. And she was originally brought up in the Catholic faith. And her name is Mariange Ubersachs, or Ubersachs, I should say. I want to tell you a little bit about her. And she owns Earth Tones Gifts Gallery and Center for Healing in downtown Paso Robles in California. She does mind, body, spirit coaching to help people reduce their stress, recover from injury, and enhance their overall fitness and health. And she has conducted wellness programs for 35 years. And a lot of that has to do with working with stress management. She's a full-time holistic practitioner who brings a number of modalities forward. She is trained in yoga, Pilates, the melt method, which is why I happened to meet her this last week in Costa Rica when we were both studying at a retreat in Costa Rica, the melt method and Nia. And she's also been trained in Nia. She also is a licensed massage therapist. So she really has a huge number of modalities at her disposal to help to heal people at many different levels. We're speaking on this topic of the Christmas spirit within the 24-hour period of the winter solstice. Here in Hawaii, it happened about 11:30 last night. And so we're still within the 24 hours of this winter solstice, which all of us recognize as the time when we have the longest night of the year and the shortest day. And so from here on forward, it's more light, more light. And it's no coincidence, perhaps, that we celebrate the birth of Jesus on a day very close to the winter solstice. And I have a feeling that Mariange will be able to shed some light on that for us. And so I'm going to just let Mariange give us a little opening presentation, and we'll probably do a little kind of interview back and forth and then open it up for the whole circle. Does that sound like that'll work well for everybody? Okay, so take it away, Marianne.
Hey, I'm really excited to be here. My own solstice gatherings were definitely internalized because I have COVID currently. So I want to share as best I can with my tea and my cough drop But if you have trouble hearing me, I can always get closer and pause and also listen. So, but good afternoon to you in Hawaii, aloha. Good evening to Mom in California. And I want to welcome you to this solstice presentation on the contemplative mystic traditions and centering prayer as we approach the Christian holiday of Christmas. But also it's a part of the Advent process. So it's definitely been working deeply in our traditions for some weeks now. I'm also sitting on the homelands of the Northern Chumash tribe, which extend east to the Carrizo Plains here and towards Kern County and south to Santa Maria, north to Ragged Point where Big Sur is, and west to the ocean, which I have been happy to share with some travelers as we have dedicated a new Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary in honor of the Chumash heritage. Not as well recognized, the lineage and brotherhood and kinship with the Salinan tribe, who are neighboring and have shared the history here. So typically I would welcome the sun in Santa Barbara on the Chumash, on behalf of the Chumash, with the Chumash standing at this Mission Santa Barbara. So I want to move right into that. How does that happen where you have this, beautiful tradition of our indigenous brethren and the mystical traditions of the Chumash, and yet the ceremonies lead us to this grassy knoll overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And that's where my experience with the mystic traditions of contemplative Christianity really emboldened itself, and the mission continued. And that was at a Catholic church, which is managed by the Franciscans, and they have a real strong concept of being a little bit more fluid as monks into this contemplative traditions. And yet it's not a masculine focus, which the monks would inert. It of course goes into Clare and Teresa of Avila and other, Julian of Norwich, and on with very deep, rich feminine understandings, and the embrace of the Franciscans to bring that feminine divine self into the practices and the rituals that we celebrate at Christmas time has been appreciated at greater and greater levels in the modern era. And I think that goes to the hard acceptance of the interfaith traditions that centering prayer has started to reflect in our communities. So let me just give a little, I appreciate the Still Moving Center because it really does, through the almanac, bring in these rich philosophical and mindful traditions. And I can only imagine what it's like to work together in a whole year to deepen these seeds of understanding and knowing, and in this case coming in 2025, bringing in the light. So if I can add anything to that light being expanded to a group of thousands and thousands of people embracing this through the centering prayer practices, then I think you'll find more of a community to join with as the year progresses. But I am neither a religious scholar nor an educator. I'm not a medicine woman. I'm not a Vedic scholar, and I don't take refuge in the Buddhist tradition. Yet that has all influenced me to be here and sit with you today. And yet I want to say that the path of Christian mysticism allows, as I've come to interpret it, is allowed an authentic and meandering path that I just mentioned to actually have home in a Christian path. And finally, after years of diverting and being, like many recovering Catholic, I could encourage the rich insight that the traditions have brought, as I embrace the common source, the energy source of love. Centering prayer is possible because of the interfaith movement that has become, through the 20th century, a lot more welcome through some very key people of Thomas Merton and Father Thomas Merton, and another Trappist, Father Keating. And hopefully that sharing of my journey and my meandering into this latest revelation of how we work together can help shed some light into what has kind of been divorced from mindfulness and quiet and stillness practices that we know of as, that I have known as in meditation. So welcome. I also want to just kind of call in some of the people that I'm going to be able to cite from or talk with you about, and maybe you have known or could raise your hand if you know of Cynthia Bourgeault. She's a Canadian Episcopal priest. She's a emeritus with the Center for Contemplation and Action, where Richard Rohr has a long-standing and strong outpouring of love towards humanity and taking action. But both of them, along with Fathers Merton and Keating, really looks at how to become super humble and to let that ego self go down and keep addressing it when it pops up during centering prayer, meditation, or even your life's work. And through that humility, I think, is when we kind of unite with that higher source and get into the place where the smallest seeds of our effort can have the vastness of the universe, or can be entrained, and we could be of best service in alignment with God and the God within ourselves. So it's quite a period where I was growing up in Catholicism, much different than even my siblings, where Vatican II had happened, and a lot of monks were in seminaries changing things, changing contemplative Christianity through the lens of catechism. The sacramental stages and all that was put aside, and this feeling of being a light on the path with Christ on your way was really the movement and the impetus of embracing this very vivid living path, where you step aside, but you realize you're right there in the circle with the divine presence. A good while later in my journey, I met Matthew Fox, who's also from the Bay Area. And he said that in his book, The Signature of Jesus, that centering prayer is an Eastern meditation technique that encourages people to be more present and open to God. And advocates of centering prayer say it doesn't replace other prayers, but instead encourages silent and deeper connection to God. And I think that was like this little fear alcove that was there. We can't say meditation in the 20th, 21st century, but we can say that it kind of gets us into a closer. But I think that door is opened. And in reality, the Christian contemplative movement has embraced the aspect of meditation and all its qualities to make it a rich opening. And it has also claimed it from the ancient traditions as not something Western, Eastern, and just said it is a real non-dualism, purposeful movement within the history of Christianity. And they cite Christ's words to make that happen. And using one of the twin Thomas's lections, his 130 44 sayings really kind of just pushes us into understanding how even in the various deep seeds of the teachings of Christ, there was this idea of letting go of our thoughts and go of our ego to be at one with the divine. And I'm going to just kind of pause after I share one of those stories. As I recall, or Jesus said that there was a woman and she had picked up a urn filled with grain. And as she was walking home, there was a hole in the jar and it spilled out the entire way. And by the time she got home, she placed the jar down and it was empty. And she set the jar down and there it was. So it's like almost by default that we let go of ourselves along the way in our deeds and our actions, and even in the way we serve our families and our community. Because we do it for this other spirit of genuine unity. And I just thought that was a really good example of how we see this emptiness of the dark night that went on for so long. And then this morning, in my case, waking up and the light coming back and staying just a little longer. Without any real change. I mean, it might have been millisecond, but there it was. It was a change and the light was fulfilling at another source level. So I wanted to use that as my start and welcome any observations or thoughts or experiences you've had with any of these people that I might have mentioned.
Thank you so much. I want to make a little light adjustment. Yeah. Nancy, Mom, why don't you go ahead and unmute and you can start off.
Nancy, let's get your volume back up. Thanks.
This doesn't relate directly to what you asked to be talked about, but I realize that I don't know what you mean when you're saying centering prayer. I don't know what that is. Maybe if you'd explain that, that would be nice.
Yeah, I would be happy to. The steps of centering prayer were qualified by Thomas Keating, who is living in a Trappist monastery in Red Bluff. And it is a moment, and that steps are you go to a point of sitting or kneeling, or you're on your cushion. And this is the point of you're giving your time and you're setting time aside, usually done in the morning when our minds and our hearts are fresh. Then saying the word or taking in a conscious breath. The sacred word would be a phrase biblically, or just relax and know that I am God. And then that devotional word sits with you and you commune with it. So in the process of saying the word, even if it's as a chant, and then going into the silence, that communion is going to take over you within the prayer period. Now, I'm going to get back to the last two steps, but as you know, when you sit down and you're in silence, the first thing you get is chatter, blah, 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 blah. You know, your mind will kick in and your thoughts will kick in, and that is very real. So there's a process of continuing to be in oneness, and it almost expect it, at the same time having to turn off that chatter, that dialogue that you might have come in with, which is very natural. Then one would go to a groundlessness, a grace experience that is allowed for as you sit with your eyes closed. And even if it's a moment, a minute, or a 20-minute period, then there's a transformation. And finally, you stay in closure and gratitude with the emptiness of the thoughts and allow the flow to return. Whereas through the steps of coming to the coming to the prayer willingly, saying the devotional words, sitting in silence to commune with them, receiving that oneness with the Creator, the divine, then there becomes a flow of our own humanity or our own divine self that is going to take you through to the day forward or to the next steps of your life. And we just kind of carry on with being closer to God's presence in our actions. So simple in a way, it doesn't have the back to my Catholic roots, it's not the entire ritual, but it is seated into the Catholic Mass where there's a point of very deep silence that you go in, and that's where grace and oneness can be fulfilled. I hope that's a helpful description.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I was wanting to have us look a little bit like just like this, look at from the backgrounds that you're talking about of contemplative and mystical Christianity, how we might think of this time of the birth of Christ, and what does it mean symbolically? The fact that someone was born into a body with this name of Jesus, and it seems to me, and there are other people who know a lot more, I think, in this group about what times were like when Jesus was born, but it does seem to me that it was a time of darkness in general, from the standpoint of the Romans were at a very they operated at a level of violence that is kind of hard for us to contemplate in our daily lives. I mean, the fact that anybody would get crucified in the way that Jesus was. I think they were still having gladiator rings for popular entertainment. And then when you look at what was going on, I understand that in the Middle East, there was a confluence of many, many different religions and philosophical traditions going on. If you look at the one into which Jesus was born, which was the Jewish tradition, it seems like it was going through a period where things weren't as pure as they probably were originally. And for example, we have Jesus having to throw the money changers out of the temples. So the temple itself wasn't being kept sacrosanct. And so those are some of the elements of darkness that were coming to my mind when at the point in time when Jesus was born. And from the perspective of looking at things from many different points of religious and philosophical traditions, there was a similar point in time when the Buddha was born, which was, I think, within about 500 years of Christ's birth. And so he was born into the Hindu tradition, which was very, very old tradition, very ritualistic at that point in time. A lot of consolidation, for example, of the caste system. And he came as a reformer to the Hindu tradition. And he brought a tradition very much of love. And we see, it seems like to me, side by side, not quite contemporaneously, but fairly close in the vast scheme of history, Christ coming as a reformer within the Jewish tradition. And so I'm wondering if there's a sense of this light coming into a time of darkness. And so that the light can emerge. And we do have the symbol, of course, of the star above the manger that the three wise men followed. So that's another, point of light in the Christian traditions, mythology, or,
Mhm.
thinking about things. And so I'm wondering if that's some of those things feed into the fact that we celebrate Jesus's birthday, which probably nobody really knows, but we celebrate it right near the winter solstice when we're moving into a time of more and more light out of the darkest night of the year.
I'd like to hear the other comments from each of you women, but I think the symbolic alignment has been to the solstice was a choice of the early Christians, because there was their own experience with the risen Christ coming back to them and how they had to interpret it themselves. And Thomas, being the doubting Thomas, was like, until I touch him, I can't know that he was alive. And so there's that had to be incarnate message and messenger. So Jesus had to be born as a human, whether this is a sacred story or real. I mean, we have the whole lineage of the Old Testament to give him a name and a heritage, and the time and the circumstances and the struggles. But we kind of look forward to the Epiphany a little bit, when all these other traditions kind of came in and said, oh, we saw this light too. And, we're unifying under the idea of light as a movement forward for all humanity, and not necessarily extrapolating people away from their own faiths, practices, or creating one legion for the whole world. But it was, we're going to honor this light by bringing the best of who we are and can, which is that universal flow, I think, that of love that is incarnate to each of those faiths. And inner light is a tradition, I think, that we share, and certainly the inner light of consciousness is resonant with the Buddhist and the Hindu. And it's often associated with the divine feminine. And so Mary steps in and says my favorite word, and so did Joseph. Yes, I'll carry this light. I know it to be, Gabriel comes and talks to her, and there we go. So I think that, yes, it embodies the wisdom of the early Christians to choose this association, and the role of the feminine to carry this wisdom forward into an incarnate body. Diana wanted to say something.
Yeah, I actually hadn't thought about it, but I mean, yes. I think for me, when I think of the quiet, it's about really entering into the oneness and being able to listen. I talk about prayer as talking to God, and meditation about listening to God. So contemplative prayer is about listening. And for me, Christmas is very powerful because for me, it's our birthdays too. I take it that we are rebirthing the light in each of us, and that there's that Jesus came as a humble baby to a woman, and whether it's metaphor or whatever, it's like there is an innocence and a preciousness that we touch into in that surrendering to the light and to the oneness. And I think the Christmas is a time for us to remember that it really is our birth and our willingness to accept Christ's divine love, however we want to say it, into us. And really, how do we nurture that light so that we can be a light unto the world. Because I believe we are all part of that light. And I think it's really a humble time for us to take an awareness of how are we living our light. And Jesus did it in his way, and Buddha did it in his way. So it's like looking at what kind of actions and how do we live our light. And it may be simple as a kindness to a grocery store person or a smile. And it's like, how do we live that light? And Christmas is a reminder to let our light shine and really have the birth be real for us.
Thank you so much, Diana. Um, Diana is someone who grew up in the Christian tradition and married somebody who turned into a Zen Roshi and then got exposed to Zen Buddhism herself. So she has traveled paths. Thank you.
I wonder what the role of self-compassion fits into this, in that when we have the longest night and we have this deep time to really look into our well, at least at the end of the year, kind of in retrospect, where have I come? It's crucial. It's a crucial time for me to cultivate it during the holy nights. Not necessarily, I can't just say, oh, it's Christmas Day and I'm opening the present of my life. Although that's what the holiday brings in, you know, from Walmart and even my shop, I'll be honest with you. But it's a process, these holy nights from the solstice to the epiphany. I mean, these stars are traveling, people are traveling, and it's a time for us to go into forgiveness, go into that humility and that letting go of the ego in order to let something come in. So there is this cathartic process, I feel, happening, as joyous as it is. And to match that is the lights coming back in little by little to bring us, to put light into our self-compassion so that we can then bring that back out to the world. And I think that's the message of the current practice of centering prayer, as it's being realized, and they're holding daily opportunities. We are sitting with that opportunity to always bring back that light, because in a day it could easily disappear or get thwarted.
Other thoughts?
Mary, I know I'm putting you on the spot. Would you be willing to share? Because I love your words of wisdom.
Bless you. My brain is just kind of in a fog right now. I get up at, early in the morning to go to chant up the sun and stuff, and just listening to the different comments. I'm still learning. I mean, I'm a cradle Catholic and I'm still learning, and I'm very blessed to have wonderful people that surround me who are kind and share all kinds of ideas, and I'm just so happy to be around this group, and um I'm very, very fortunate to be associated with the basic Christian community of Hawaii, which is um, with the Benedictines. And yeah, one of my uncles was um, a Monsignor in the Catholic Church here in Honolulu, and so I've had church people around me all the time, and we're all so diverse. We're all so different. We've all had different life experiences. Or every every parent is going to be different. When I see how others have gone through whatever they've gone through, and we cling to Jesus, we cling to Father God, because Jesus is the one who, well, Blessed Mother guides us or leads us to Jesus, and Jesus leads us to Father God. And I'm just getting that now. 74 years and just getting it now. But it's okay. It's okay because I'm again blessed. And so I'm sorry I don't have too much anything else to say. Amen.
No, Mary Bird, tell us, if you would, what to you is the Christmas spirit and how do you live it?
The Christmas spirit is giving love, opening your heart, opening your home. It's seeing those who have nothing or who have very little, because Jesus was born into poverty, and you can grasp joy from the little things. You don't need to have lots of glitter and gold and stuff. It's pretty, it's nice. But ultimately it's giving of ourselves to others that I feel is the real heart of Christmas. Amen.
Thank you. I imagine that everyone could, from almost any tradition, be able to identify with a sentiment like that attached to a sacred or holy day. That was very universally put, I think. Thank you. David, we're glad to have someone other than all females in the room. And I also see we may have a David here as well. Can't tell for sure.
Well, whenever I log in, this phantom note taker jumps in, so I
Oh.
tried to send it out, but it's not taking notes. It's just there. My my email that I got for Gems today was sent me a link for Murat's Pilates class. So I spent the last half hour trying to find out who had the real link. So sorry to miss. Oh, I don't know how you all got in because
We're glad you got in and sorry you had trouble doing it. Apologies on behalf of the
so Spirit of Christmas, new toys. don't I don't know. Living here now away from family, so there's not the trees and the this and then that. So I think the familial element of it and gathering together and maybe letting go of some things of the past and um, all has sort of faded into the background for me. So looking for maybe adopting a new meaning. And so I'm sorry to have missed other people's contributions to that idea. There may be some fertile ground for me to grow from. I was reflecting on what Mary just said about, you know, um, poverty versus lots of things. And in my class this morning, I subbed for Robin, and we're talking about the yogic path of quieting the mind so that when the mind is quiet, the nature of the spirit can be present. It's always present, but it's drowned out by the noise of the mind. But I think also possessions have a tendency to hide the real life, the true nature, that they're distractions from the things that are real, like when we gather together on Christmas morning or any particular holiday, and we're just there to give of ourselves. I think possessions have a way of distracting us from the essential element that some biologists would say is our human nature to connect and to give to one another and to be compassionate, all of those yummy things. So maybe that's in some way the essence of Christmas.
David, thank you for sharing that. It touches me that our classes, wherever we hold them, or if we're holding ceremony like Mary has done multiple times in the last day or so, has a feeling of creating a collective holiness, a correct collective grace. And what I have appreciated about this topic is that we really do bring it into the communion of our practices together, and in that it becomes the true self in expressing in the divine. And from Father Keating's point of view, it's like the personality and the personal identity and his role as the top of the Trappist monastery removed his face and allowed him, and as he prayed till the final moment, to keep moving to the true self of the divine and offering and giving forth of ourselves to that. And I think that the gift is often when we get to be in that resonance together and experience it, and it's visceral. And Shavasana is that, where we empty out so much of our practice. We've burned up, the goodness of our life force in our physical form and healed, etc. But the grace of just sitting in union afterwards, where we are closer to our true selves, is just something I think, we embrace, and you must do ongoing through your commitment to the year activity and the year activity coming up, which is this inner light.
Beautifully said. Thank you.
Margaret, do you have something you'd like to share with us? A personal experience of the Christmas spirit, or something that somebody else's words reminded you of? Let's see, we'll ask you to unmute.
Okay. People reaching out to me in unexpected ways has opened me up to reaching out to, frankly, my son and daughter-in-law and her mom, who are here on the island, that I really wouldn't have done, I don't think, in the way that I did. My point being, when we open ourselves or reach out, it's contagious. And a simple example, well, that's a big example, but a simple little example was I went to the store, got something, was with the cashier, went back like an hour later. We recognized each other. We smiled. Have a good day. Maybe I'll see you again tonight. I mean, it definitely multiplies. And I think that's really a good thing to remember. And knowing that whatever someone has done, they have blessed you, and hopefully they know that they are blessed in return by it multiplying multiple times.
That seems to have something to do with the Christmas spirit. Before I go on to my mom, Marianne, do you have anything you wanted to mention along those lines?
I think thank you, Margaret. To wind back, just for the sake of the contemplative Christian focus, is that we're all in the process of becoming more Christ-like. And I remember a pastor said, Jesus crawled down off of his Christmas tree this year to walk with us as we went along on our path. I mean, he wasn't up in the tree, he was not in the lights, he was not in the tinsel. And while precious, not even the nativity, it was about facing ourselves fully and walking in that moment of grace that we can easily become separated from. And so that's what that reminds me of, is to be deep and honest understanding of ourselves that we get to reflect through this type of discussion, and hopefully harness this through the coming holiday spirit, which is a fortuitous gift. Thank you for making this happen, today on this topic.
Okay, well, I do want to turn to Nancy Ocker, my mom, and we have spent decades of Christmases together over the years. And we did have manger scenes that we set up in the house. Mom was brought up in the Unitarian Universalist faith, and she actually taught Sunday school to kids. And that probably seems very long and far away to her. She's I don't want to speak for her. I do know, though, that she has many a time around, rather than be around a Christmas tree that was stacked multiple stories high with presents, she would just like absent herself from that whole gift opening scene and then come back in later and maybe have the Christmas dinner. She's really not comfortable with all the stuff that goes along with Christmas. And I think that she considers herself an agnostic rather than a Christian. And yet we've always really celebrated Christmas. So I wonder, Mom, if I can ask you, what does that mean to you, the Christmas spirit? And I'll have to ask you to unmute. I may.
I'm so lucky now, and really most of my 90-some years, to lived in communities where people shared, and I've never really had any bad experiences that I can think of. So I know I'm really, really lucky with that. You're right. I did not grow up in a Christian background. I know the stories, of course, of Christianity, but have never considered myself a Christian. And I do appreciate listening to others and how they find that helps their life a lot. I don't know that I feel that I've missed anything by, not believing, by being an agnostic. But I don't know. I've had a charmed life. We were having a party in the neighborhood recently, and I really was just telling that my life is, who knows? I said my life has just been charmed with, I mean, I had a couple bad experiences, a bad automobile accident that affect my physical life. But you know, that taught me that, I mean, yeah, I only have the minute I'm living in. I know I could be this, I have just the minute. You don't live like that, but I'm really aware of that and very thankful for every minute. And my house and all my belongings burned down in that Oakland fire, and that taught me that things are things, you know. And you you appreciate having them and so on, and you hope that other people can enjoy them when you no longer have them. And so it's, I don't, I feel really awkward very often on Saturday afternoons because I don't feel I'm that interested in philosophy, as a matter of fact. And so I like to listen to you and hear how you relate to your life. And but truly, I'm not very philosophical. So I just am thankful for each one of you having beliefs that help you along, as I have had, although mine are not based on religion. So, but thank you very much always for sharing.
I think part of your life credo does have to do with giving. I can't imagine you going a day without giving something to somebody else.
Not physical things necessary, but no, my life is always one of being interaction, you know, with friends, interaction with family. We have a great family. I have always had great friends, and and teaching. I just love teaching and storytelling. So I've had these great personal experiences. I'm very thankful for them. And I sometimes I think, gee, I'm glad I don't believe in reincarnation, because I'm sure at the top, maybe I would be way down at the bottom next time. So I'm glad I don't believe in that. Just kidding.
Thank you very much. I feel like I have learned so much about walking the path of generosity from my mom. Of course, she wouldn't let you know that from anything she said, but she's an entirely gracious and generous person. And when you talk about giving from yourself, that's what she does. Carolyn Dorrance is in Santa Barbara, California, so she's the closest Mariange to where you are in Paso Robles. She's a longtime student of Theosophy. She also grew up in Protestant faith, I understand correctly. And I wonder, Carolyn, what would you like to share with us in regard to your idea on the Christmas spirit?
Well, I tried very hard to not get upset that I came early and got pressed gems and got into another website. I was the only one there, and waiting for the host. And so then I started moving around, trying different things. And in the meantime, there were another gems site came in. So that's what got me in. What I've noticed, I appreciate listening to you all. I wish I had been able to get in sooner. But
So sorry, Carolyn.
what I noticed was in the last few weeks I've been having to deal with when certain offices are closing. Oh, we'll be closed on the 17th or at noontime, and it's been very kind of complicated. But what I really noticed is that the people who work in these various offices, really take this time seriously, for that it's their time to be involved in what they value, like family, or maybe it's various activities. There's a spirit, a happiness and a spirit that comes over them, and it's primary. What your business or whatever is usually part of the workaday world is of secondary importance. And so that makes for a kind of community of a spirit of Christmas. They see it as a special time, and it seems the length of time that they have, it used to be a day or two, and now it's extended in a lot of places to about 2 weeks. So it's interesting to see them in another light in terms of their, you might say, deeper values. So that's a good message to receive and to want to develop in your own self.
I wanted to, well, I had little focus on you, Carolyn. You and I have both read a text from Concord Grove Press called The Gospel According to Thomas. There are, I'm sure, very many different versions of the Gospel According to Thomas, and I think Marianne, you were referencing that, and the one that I'm familiar with is from Concord Grove Press. And I want to read something that I feel, to me, has a lot to do with the spirit of Christmas. And so just kind of wanted to open this up to you, Carolyn, to Marianne, and to the group as a whole. So I'm going to read it a couple times. It's kind of dense, so we just have to like open up my mind to receive this. If the flesh came into being for the sake of the spirit, that is a mystery. But if the spirit came into being for the sake of the body, that is a wondrous miracle. That was quoted from Jesus. So I'm going to read it again. It has something about this idea, I think, of taking birth into a human body. If the flesh came into being for the sake of the spirit, that is a mystery. But if the spirit came into being for the sake of the body, that is a wondrous miracle.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some thoughts on it, but I want to let other people, talk here about this, because gosh, I'm just noticing the time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 4:00. Okay. Well, then what I would like to do instead is to say we will stay on for a few minutes for anybody who would like to talk a little bit more at length. And I'd just like to go around the circle once and allow each of us to do takeaways. So Carolyn, if you'd like to go first, that would be great.
Did you speak to me?
Yes, would you like to give a takeaway or a brief reflection on the passage that I read?
Well, no, it's from above, below, and from what is universal. I was just spent the afternoon reading a long article on stars, and it answered all kinds of questions, but it really blows your mind that to see or to read about how thoroughly we are involved in this cosmos, and the recognition that stars like us are born, develop, give out vast amounts of light and then kind of grow old and die. So the cycle of life is cosmic. But what does the star offer but light? And that light, we need that light. And that light is, because that's the only way we can see a star is see their light. So I think meditating upon the deep, vast presence of light, which you could call at its source spiritual, and how it pervades and gives growth, gives life and growth. We learn from the light that shines in whatever, including in other people. That's what I would, it's just amazing. And that light travels huge distances, as well as the minerals and the forces. I've never got over hearing from an astronomer that the minerals in our body come from the stars. So the presence is from above, from deep within, comes the very essential source of not just light, but energy that keeps us alive and enables us to learn and to know more and more. And believe me, you can find it, I think, on Wikipedia, but I never learned so much about stars as I did this afternoon. So I think
Thank
that's
you.
part of what Christmas reminds us of.
Yes, indeed. I think so too. I'm gonna go down to David and then I'm gonna go Diana, Mary, Margaret, and over to Marianne.
Something about the relationship between giving and forgiving. And I haven't worked that out yet. But you've given me something to chew on, so thank you.
Thank you.
I think our bodies are a temple to our soul, and that although the spirit and our body are one, there's no separation, that celebrating with loving kindness and forgiveness for ourselves and for others and having grace is what the season is about, and love. And I think it's really about realizing that if our body is the temple of the soul, then how do we express that soul in our everyday life and with love?
Beautiful. Thank you.
Profound comments. I love it. Um, not necessarily for this, but from other things that we we're talking about. I just love this one thought that grief shared is divided and joy shared is multiplied. So, in a community, we do it all. Thank you for being part of my community. Merry Christmas.
Christmas. Thank you. Margaret?
What I picked up a lot about letting go ego, self, being extremely humble for whatever the terms were. I think we're blessed with the opportunity that the more we're able to let go, the closer and the more loving we are, and the closer we become to the divine. And we're blessed that we can do that.
Thank you. Marianne?
Thank you. Those are beautiful sentiments. The spirit moving into flesh, moving into, for the sake of the body, is a wondrous miracle. And maybe I celebrate that because that's how I met Renee. And it, through the melt method, curiously enough on all the all the mindful movement practices. That innate movement through my body, which I'll appreciate right now as this fascial connection, has all these gestures and life and sufferings and it's the whole balance of brain, heart, mind, and Gaia coming together. And it is reseated every day. It's reseated with every gesture and movement and in every sharing through my body. And I get to be conscious of what it's seeding. And I can see if it's the goodness shared and, like you said, the joy spread out. And that's my Christmas wish to everyone.
Thank you ever so much, Marianne. We have a little tradition of asking somebody to give a vote of thanks to our presenter. So I'll ask for somebody who'd like to do that. I'll let you know that for next week, which will be our final week of 2024, so Saturday, December 28th, we have been taking up that whole set of the Buddhist paramitas. And so the final paramita is called prajna, which could be translated, and we are translating it as the virtue of spiritual wakefulness, virtue of spiritual wakefulness. So that's what we'll be taking up. I'd like to do a little bit of kind of wrapping up of some of the things that we've thought about over the year of gems. So each of you has shared some or many of the gems that we've taken up this year. So in this idea of spiritual wakefulness, you know, what's come through also with this theme for the whole year of irreversibility, eyes to the stars, and Carolyn mentioned the stars. And what Marianne opened with was a whole focus on light. And of course, we'll head into next year's theme, which in the almanac is going to be light on the path. So is there somebody who would like to offer a vote of thanks to Marianne for just beautiful sharing with us, just so heartfelt and built on so many years of your own very deep contemplation and life living. Yeah.
I will thank you so much. Very welcome to our group. Since you now know Renee, you're gonna, if you continue to come here, you'll get to know the rest of us. And really, we are a very diverse group from all kinds of walks of life and different levels of education. I agree with Nancy. I sometimes don't get a lot of things, but I can listen and I can just, you know, I'm grateful for the sharing. So thank you for what you brought to our group. And thank you, Renee, for opening up this opportunity for all of us. And love to each and every one of you in your boxes. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yes.
Aloha.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you,
Merry
Renee.
Absolutely.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you.
so much, Marianne.
You're
welcome.
welcome. Happy
What-
solstice. Aloha.
Aloha. Bye, Margaret. Another
Bye-bye.
Mary name.
Middle name Mary.
Take it.
Aloha.
Aloha.